Hi, I'm Dr. Joanne Conroy, President and CEO of Dartmouth Health, and I'm pleased to be joined in the studio today by Dr. Konstantin Dragnev, who's Associate Director for Clinical Research here at Dartmouth Cancer Center. Konstantin joins me to discuss clinical trials at Dartmouth Cancer Center, how patients can benefit from clinical trials, and the importance of having an NCI-designated comprehensive cancer center in New Hampshire. Welcome, Konstantin.
Thank you, John, and thank you for the viewers who are tuning in and for those who will look at the archive.
Now, our viewers kind of like to get to know our guests, and tell me a little bit about how long you've been with Dartmouth Cancer Center, but also your path, because I know you studied in Bulgaria, for when you decided you wanted to go into medicine until you ended up here at Dartmouth.
Well, it was a long journey. I'm a medical oncologist, which is a cancer doctor, and I specialize in treatment of cancers of the chest. So this is lung cancer, but also esophageal cancer, cancer of the lining of the lung. I did not go into medicine to become an oncologist. I wanted to become a cardiologist. But during medical school in Bulgaria, which is 6 years, I joined a molecular biology lab where cancer research was the focus. This was the time many years ago when oncogenes are being discovered, growth factor receptors, so it's a very exciting field. And I became really interested in cancer research. I had an opportunity to come to the United States as a postdoctoral fellow. I was in a basic science laboratory at the National Cancer Institute in Bethesda. And it was very exciting research, but I realized that really my heart, my passion was in taking care of patients. So I did my training at Baylor in Houston, and then at Sloan Kettering in New York. And my research during fellowship was on lung cancer, and this is how I gradually became a lung cancer doctor when I came to Dartmouth.
That's great. And when did you move to the Upper Valley?
In 1998, so I've been here quite a while.
So a lot of things have changed. It's 25 years.
A lot has changed, but a lot has changed in medicine, in society. The strengths of Dartmouth remain the same. It's the collaborative environment. You can talk to your colleagues. You can set up joint projects. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you know, there is something really special about our cancer center that a lot of people don't appreciate, is that we have both Geisel School of Medicine and Dartmouth Hitchcock and now Dartmouth Health that are actually co-located in the cancer center. So you get that great kind of lateral collaboration with people that are in the, foundational research labs with people that are taking care of patients.
No, absolutely. And the cancer center is the home for anyone who is interested in cancer research in the lab, cancer research on a population level, and the one that I really enjoy the most, helping patients with cancer.
Now, how did you end up being focused on lung cancer? Was it simply because of the research you had done in Bulgaria that kind of captured your interest? Because lung cancer is one of the cancers we've made the least amount of progress in, although I think there is a lot of exciting work being done right now, both in early detection and early treatment. So why pulmonary or lung cancer versus other types of cancer?
I mean, it started with research, understanding the mechanisms of lung cancer and the different subtypes of lung cancer. But also it is the most lethal of the cancers for both men and women. So it's not breast cancer, it's not prostate cancer. And there are so many different types of lung cancer. So the molecular basis is, now that we are understanding it more and more, makes it a very exciting area that there is more to be done. And helping patients with lung cancer, I find very rewarding.
My expectation is a lot of patients, when you see them for the first time, are really, really nervous because we talk a lot about lung cancer and our kind of inability to catch it early. Describe kind of how you walk into the room for the first time.
Cancer is a very scary word. It's a diagnosis that everybody fears, and it is the uncertainty, the lack of control when you hear cancer and you don't know what's going to happen. Am I going to die tomorrow? Is treatment going to be hard? So when I see patients, they already have seen numbers on the internet. So they come with terrified that the statistics are not favorable. And what we try to do is to instill some meaning in those numbers. And I emphasize for lung cancer that it's not the patient's fault. The majority, even though lung cancer is associated with smoking, the majority of the patients that we see have quit smoking. So they did their part. And to have this notion that, it's a self-inflicted cancer is very wrong. So with increasing awareness that lung cancer is like any other cancer. It's not your fault. And try to instill hope as well as reality and share experiences of patients who did well and defied the odds.
Yeah. Yeah, your team does a very good job. Having gone through it with my late husband who had cholangiocarcinoma, do a great job of really sifting through the facts and being honest, but really giving people alternatives. Let's talk about the Cancer Center and the importance of being a comprehensive cancer center designated by NCI. Probably a lot of our patients don't really know that, and yet they're incredibly lucky to have it right around the corner from where they live.
I mean, yes, we are proud of our designation. We are a comprehensive cancer center designated by the National Cancer Institute. So it's both a recognition and validation of the accomplishments of the advanced research that we are doing. And to qualify, you have to give both depth and breadth of your research. Basic science, clinical science, population science. And the key is the collaboration. The transdisciplinary, so multiple specialties being involved working on all of these programs. We are one of 53 comprehensive cancer centers in the country, and it is how we translate these research advancements to the communities that we serve.
So I've actually participated in the interviews of people coming, and they come every 3 years, I think, to evaluate whether or not we're meeting the criteria for the designation. And everybody across the country has to go through that every 3 years. It was interesting to hear their emphasis on not only the community and community engagement, but how we were designing programs to actually meet the needs of our community. As a practicing oncologist, what are the specific challenges that we have in rural America delivering cancer care that you see every single day?
It is somewhat unique to be serving a rural population. It is not only the racial and ethnic specifics, but socioeconomic. It's the distance that the patients have to drive. Therefore, it is not just in the main campus that we care for patients. We have more than a dozen satellite facilities where our oncologists, our specialists go to. So the level of care that we provide at the main campus and at the satellite facilities, we strive this to be the same. So the distance should not be one of the things that the patient would worry.
You know, when we built the St. Johnsbury facility, and you were probably here when we built it, I think was it about 20 years ago, I think? And I think people thought that maybe we would decrease our business here by building the facility there. But we found that our business here continued to grow. And the St. Johnsbury facility was serving patients that had opted out of care because they didn't actually want to drive the hour and a half. And so that validates what you've said. Often it's the distance that actually challenges them.
It is the distance and the need for not only the patient, but their caregivers to take time off. The treatment may be 45 minutes, but if you drive 2 hours to get here and 2 hours back, it's a full day. And it is time that the patient can spend home. We talk about quality of life. Driving to the hospital is not quality of life.
Yeah. Even though our parking's a little bit better than it was a few years ago, it's a long drive for an exhausted caregiver. And sometimes patients that don't feel very well when they're driving back home. I know that we have a facility in St. Johnsbury, and we have a program in southwestern Vermont. We have programs in Cheshire. I think we also have one maybe in Monadnock, don't we? And then we've got them in Manchester and Nashua. And I'm probably missing a few other ones where we have programs. But
so we do, the way I look at those, we have programs from Lancaster and St. Johnsbury to the north, to Nashua in the south, from Bennington on the west to Plymouth on the east. So it's covering most of New Hampshire and a lot of Vermont.
And yes, you're right. So let's talk about clinical trials, because you're in charge of those. And I'm not sure people understand clinical trials. So talk a little bit about the differences in the clinical trials, maybe starting in the kind of aftermarket trials, which are really after something's been approved, and then working up to the most experimental clinical trial.
Clinical trials are how progress in medicine, and in this case in oncology, is made. We understand cancer better, we know the mechanisms to some degree, we try to find the weak spots, and then we design treatments. And these treatments, they can be medicines, but they can also be procedures, they can be devices, they can be surgery. The way they are being evaluated before widespread use is through clinical trials. It's a multi-step process. Phases 1, 2, and 3 are evaluating different aspects. Is the treatment safe, which is step 1? Is this safe treatment effective, which is step 2? And then is the treatment more effective than established treatment, which is the phase 3 trial. And then, as you mentioned, phase 4, which is after a drug has been approved to get additional information. These trials are for different types of cancer, but also for different stages of cancer. So for early stage cancer, we have trials for late stages. And also different studies for different moments in the course of cancer. Treatment early on, just after diagnosis, or treatments after several have stopped working. And we have a portfolio that covers most of these different elements. Just finding the right cancer for the right patient is what we do every day.
Let's talk a little bit more about examples of trials. I've known people that are on phase 1 trials, phase 2 and phase 3 and phase 4 trials. What should they know about the trial before they sign up? Because they're not going to really understand the science necessarily, although some people can really educate themselves. But what are the questions that they should be asking?
It is a process. You can read about a new treatment, you can read about a trial on the internet, but it should be a discussion with the oncology team, with your oncologist, but also with the research nurse, with the nurse practitioner, even with a social worker. The goal of the trial for me is to help the patient. The goal is also to advance science, to help other patients, but it should be, does it have a chance of helping me? I think this should be the main question. And then the logistics. Do I have to come more often? Do I have to come less often? As part of clinical trials, you will be monitored more closely.
Yeah. I know when my late husband and I were actually talking about his treatment, we did talk about several options, and he chose not to come to get infusions, at a certain frequency, and wanted to do something that he could take at home. And it's important to actually find out what the patient actually really wants when you're designing a clinical trial or selecting them for a trial, whether or not they want to put up with what they have to do as a participant in the trial.
Well, you've been through the difficult part of it. It's one thing talking in theory how it is, and when it's you or a loved one, it's a hard decision. And that's why I feel that a clinical trial should be one of the options. It shouldn't be the only one. Maybe it will be a good option, but it should be discussed as the many things that we can choose to treat the cancer. And it will be right for one patient, it may not be right for another. And the decision has to be tailored to the specifics of the patient's cancer, but also the patient, their values, and this will guide the most appropriate plan.
So what clinical trials are going on right now that you're really excited about at the Cancer Center?
We have a very robust portfolio. We are a comprehensive cancer center. We have trials that are national trials run through the NCI.
Which means it doesn't matter if you're in Boston or New York or San Francisco.
Correct.
You have the same trial.
It's the same trial. Here it's closer to home, but these are the same same trials. We are, I'm proud to say, we are one of 32 lead academic participating sites for the National Cancer Institute. So it's another recognition specifically of our research program. So we have trials through that network. We also have trials of novel treatments or novel devices that are coming from industry. They can be phase 1, they can be phase 3. But one of the most exciting type of trial are the trials that are designed based on science by Dartmouth scientists, Dartmouth researchers, because these are trials that are unique. They're available only here, not only in the main campus, but at some of the satellite clinics that we have. And they're designed having in mind the specifics of our patients. So these are usually small trials, but they're unique, and it's something that you cannot get if you go to Boston or to New York.
Yeah, interesting. Well, how do patients find out about those? Is there a national registry about specific ones that are only used at Dartmouth Health, or maybe only used at another facility?
So there are online resources. Most of those are reliable. There are ways to look for trials, specifically Dartmouth Health. You just do Dartmouth Health clinical trials and then select oncology.
From Mr. Google.
Correct.
Yes.
But you should talk to your oncologist. And on many of the websites, they say where a trial is open. And I had a patient who came from Boston to be treated here because she realized that the trial was available here and not there.
Mean available because it was only offered here, or available because it was closed in Boston and open here?
No, it was only open here. It was,
Only
for some
open
reason,
here.
it was not open there.
And when a trial closes, what does that mean?
So when a trial closes, usually that means that enough information has been gathered to determine is the treatment more effective, equally effective as established treatment. So you will not be able to get this treatment until the analysis is done. And part of what we do is anticipate when a trial is going to close so that we can have another one for a similar type of cancer.
So
we
you're
stagger them.
able to have kind of options for people. How long does it take the analysis to be performed?
Everybody wants to see the results as
Right
soon as
away.
they're and in clinical trials, we don't wait for the actual publication in a journal. Results are presented at conferences, and this is where we learn most of the new developments. It depends on whether it's a trial for advanced cancer, where the results may come months after the trial is closed, or for early stage cancer, where the results may come several years after the trial is closed. But the oncologists, the surgeons, the radiation oncologists, we are part of the national community. So we talk to each other, we go to conferences, we hear what's being done. And we know maybe something is available elsewhere and not here. Then we will recommend that the patient go there. If something is available here, we'll say, you have a choice.
I've always been impressed with the Dartmouth Cancer Center physicians, that they encourage people to actually either get a second opinion, or they make sure that you actually go to the site that offers whatever you need to have the best outcome. And my expectation is that's kind of the ethos of all oncologists across the country, that they're very kind of patient focused in terms of making sure people go to the right place.
No, absolutely, and that's a very important thing, that patients or their families should not feel uncomfortable asking for a second opinion. Yeah. It is not the common cold, it is cancer. And I encourage them, if you have any questions, it's better to get a second opinion. Most of the time it will be just to validate, but it's a peace of mind. And we have patients that we send for a second opinion. We also see patients for a second opinion here.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the pandemic. We had a lot of people move up here during the pandemic. They just felt it was a safer place. My expectation is some of those were oncology patients that moved up here. At the Cancer Center, did you see an increase in not only patients, but people seeking clinical trials maybe outside of an urban setting that were kind of delighted to find us tucked here in the Upper Valley?
We did see additional patients, and interestingly, there were patients coming from a big city. Some were in the middle of treatment, some were selecting treatment, and they had already a clinical trial in mind. In others, we have examples of they were already on a trial. We had the trial here, so they just continued clinical trial participation.
Do they just transition their trial here? I mean, you don't get people on clinical trials that are up here for 2 weeks or a month and decide to, you do have that.
This is the more complicated, because even if the trial is open here, the patient should be treated in one place.
Yeah.
And it was mostly, well, I will be here for 6 months. Mm-hmm. Then it made sense for the transition to happen. Otherwise, it was continuing the routine treatment.
And there's some benefit because the team knows you. And all of these can have some side effects, and you want to make sure that people kind of appreciate when you may be having a side effect of the trial.
Absolutely true. And it's also in oncology, you create a relationship with the patient and the family. And this is valuable for both the patient and the oncology team.
You know, when we have done research on at least medications in the past, there were placebo controlled. But my expectation is in oncology trials, people aren't necessarily getting a placebo. They're just getting different doses of a drug or one drug versus another drug.
This is absolutely true. And it's important to know, in oncology, almost never would be a trial where the only thing that you'll get will be a sugar pill or placebo. It's usually a new drug on top of the standard or placebo on top of the standard. But in all studies, there is an active treatment.
And there's active treatment and intervention. Well, we actually have a lot of questions from our audience, so let me transition to those. Is there an expense for patients to participate in clinical trials, or does insurance cover them?
So by law, clinical trials are covered. They are covered like your standard care. This means if there is a deductible, if there is a copay, it applies. There is a certain group of insurance plans under Medicare Advantage where, even though it's covered, there may be an additional step that the study participant or the patient may have to submit a claim. But if there is a procedure that's only for the clinical trial, it is covered by the study. The treatment, if it comes from the clinical trial, it is covered by the study.
So that's probably a good question, though, for patients to ask so they understand and can ask questions if they have any about their billing.
Absolutely. And this will be part of the decision, shall I participate in a trial or not?
So another question, if I'm a patient participating in a clinical trial and it's not improving my condition, who makes the decision to stop?
The formal answer is you as the patient, you can always say, it doesn't help me, I'm done, I want to stop. But it's usually in collaboration with the oncologist, because we also want the patient to be doing better. So if the patient is not benefiting, I will tell them, I think this is not working, we should stop and go to something else. But you can stop study participation at any time for no reason. I changed my mind, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, so it's really up to the patient.
Absolutely.
Are there any myths about clinical trials that you might want to debunk? Like, what's the most common misconception people have about clinical trials?
Outside of the placebo question, well, I'll be getting nothing, which is not true. It's also, it's not experimentation. So there is a lot of work that's done to ensure safety when you're participating in a clinical trial, when you're getting a new treatment. It is not the oncologist who decides, oh, this will be the treatment that you should get. It is in a discussion with the patient and their family. So if you, as a patient, are told, oh, do this trial, there is nothing else, you should question that. It is always one of the options.
Yeah, yeah. Now, for a cancer patient who is offered the chance to be part of a clinical trial, it can be intimidating or scary to be given a treatment that is experimental. So you're right, people worry about that term. But it also has the opportunity to potentially help them and others down the road. And what's interesting, most cancer patients want to actually help the next person who may be facing their issues. So what do you tell patients that might be apprehensive? Like, this trial is probably going to give them an opportunity to have a higher quality of life or maybe a longer life, but they're apprehensive. How do you approach that?
It's that balance between kind of being realistic being honest and providing hope. And I would introduce the idea of the trial along with the other existing treatments and go over the pros and cons of each. And ultimately, the patient makes a decision, but I would say, well, of these, maybe the clinical trial will be the one with the highest chance of being successful. And sometimes it's not. And you have, in oncology, with the relationship that we have with patients, you understand the values, and ultimately it's the patient's frame of mind. Yes, I want to try something new, or no, I don't, I want the established one. So what the patient is most comfortable with is the right decision.
So I bet patients don't know that, the cancer center team kind of looks at an interdisciplinary team at the patients at, certain frequency, and that you were probably joined with your cancer surgeons, dietitians, the nurses, to actually discuss how patients are doing that are on trials, and what are the other interventions that you need to be aware of for them. How often does that occur where their case is actually kind of reviewed by the team?
For most cancer center trials, we have weekly meetings. It's either at the tumor board or as a research meeting for the team. And you go over patients who are on trials, patients who are not on trials. Were there any specific side effects? Was somebody doing very well that we can share? And it is one of the features of participating in a clinical trial is this close monitoring, and you have a larger team working with you.
Yeah. People probably don't appreciate that there are a lot of eyes on how they're progressing on a weekly basis. And it's probably much closer monitoring than if they were not on a clinical trial.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah. So anything else that we should let our viewers know about clinical trials here? I know we have hundreds, and we have more opening up every single day. The website is the Dartmouth Cancer Center.
The Dartmouth Cancer Center, the clinical trials. But the key is speak with your oncology team. It can be the oncologist, but it can be the oncology nurse practitioner or the nurse, and look at what fits most your values.
Okay. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. And I want to thank the audience.
Thank you for having me.
And you've shared some really wonderful information for a lot of people that may be considering clinical trials. And I want to thank you all for joining us and your thoughtful questions. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Thank you, Konstantin.
Thank you for having me.